Colin Dexter, a mischievous, generous man every bit as clever as his creations. Val McDermid. If you didn't know Colin Dexter was an internationally acclaimed best-selling author whose award-winning novels had spawned 3 successful TV series, you'd never have guessed. A short, unassuming man in blazer and flannels, toting an old leather briefcase and living in an undistinguished semi on a main road on the outskirts of Oxford, he was invariably humble about his achievements. "I've been very lucky," he would say. "Lucky with my publisher, lucky with the television people, lucky to have John Thaw playing more." He never had a literary agent because he remained convinced of the fundamental decency of people, despite the villainy and venality his books contained. I bought his debut novel, Last Bus to Woodstock, in a second-hand shop in Plymouth in 1976, because it was set in Oxford and I was homesick for the city where I just spent 3 very happy years. What I found was a novel as intricately plotted as anything from the golden age of crime writing, but which was set very firmly in the here and now, in a vivid Oxford I recognized. 15 years, 8 novels and a lot of admiration later, I got to know the man behind Morse, and I was delighted to find Colin was not only as clever as his creation, which is not often the case, but also much more mischievous and generous. He loved the company of his fellow writers, but he also genuinely enjoyed meeting his readers. He was never too grand to stop and talk to fans, and in spite of his deafness and failing eyesight, he had an astonishing ability to remember where he'd met people previously. Colin was a man of great passions. He'd been a classics teacher, and he often returned to those early texts that had first inspired him. Like Morse, he loved music. And then there were the crosswords. Colin wasn't just intelligent, he had a devious cast of mind that made him expert in the solving and setting of cryptic crosswords. Worse, he was adept in those fiendish puzzles that are all white spaces, whose clues leave me baffled even when I'm looking at the solution. He contributed clues to the Observer's 8th crossword whose answers were words like tornadical and palombre. And that is probably why he confounded us readers time and time again with his stories. His natural cast of mind was the corkscrew, rather than the straight line from A to Z. I couldn't share that crossword passion, but one area where we were of the same mind was the Archers. We were once seated next to each other at a charity dinner, deep in concerned conversation about Carolyn Vaughan's love life. One of the organizing committee smiled indulgently at us and said, "It's lovely you have such good friends in common." Colin fixed her with a faintly baffled look and said, "My dear, we're talking about the Archers." Back in 2003, I was involved in setting up a new crime writing festival in Harrogate. Publishers and authors alike were dubious about its potential for success, all the way up there in a small northern town. We needed a big name to show we were serious, so we asked Colin. "Of course I'll do it for you, my dear," he said at once. Always generous, always supportive. His was the first event at the first Harrogate Festival. He set the tone, and we were finally able to thank him properly when we gave him the Outstanding Achievement Award in 2012, to add to his 5 CWA daggers. One of our regular encounters was at the annual Mystery and Crime Conference at my alma mater, St. Hilda's College, Oxford. Colin always enjoyed listening to other writers giving talks about aspects of the genre and their personal passions. His frequent after-dinner speeches were masterpieces of comic timing, always delivered with self-deprecating wit and a complete lack of malice. We will, I'm sure, raise a glass to his memory at this year's conference. With his departure from the party, we've lost the last of the quartet who opened up the crime novel to new possibilities and pushed the envelope wide enough to accommodate my generation of writers and the ones snapping at our heels. I think it's no exaggeration to say P.D. James, Ruth Rendell, Reginald Hill and Colin Dexter were the modern equivalent of Christie, Allingham, Sayers, and Marsh. We still, thank heavens, have the books. What I'll miss is the warmth of his company and the breadth of his conversation. Whenever we met, we indulged in our favorite game of who and bridge would you currently most like to murder? If there is an afterlife, I'd lay a penny to a gold claw Colin will be imagining horrible deaths for Pip Archer. And leaving the clues in a crossword.